Welcome everybody to PinstripeChronicles podcast. I am Tats. I am here with Rob and Donald, and the Yankees complete the homestand by sweeping the A's. They're getting set for a long road trip. A lot of teams on the docket for this one, but the game yesterday, it really was what the Yankees needed before hitting the road to Houston to kind of try to get a little offensive revenge on the Astros. With the power, the power from Judge and Stanton again. When the two of them both hit home runs in a game, it's just insane. Their record, I think it's 23-1 now when the both of them homer. And when you watch the first inning, there's one thing that we have learned this year. The first inning hiccups from the pitchers are not dictating the exact flow results of what the game is going to be. They're cleaning up their pitching in between innings, working with Matt Blake. You see them always sitting there with the iPad, talking with the other starting pitchers, trying to figure out, all right, what's working, what's not working. And you saw Tyone was able to, might not have been his best start that we've seen lately, but was able to keep the Yankees in the game like the pitching staff has been doing since day one. So what did you guys think was the overall take on the success of this homestand that they had?
Never say die, I guess, yeah. Right? Set the home run record for home runs in June with 57 now. The only loss we have when Judge and Stanton homer is the Field of Dreams game, so does that really count? That bull crap stadium they made it. But yeah, just a good month, good homestand. We should have swept them, That's at the end of the day, we should have swept them. There was only one game where you felt like maybe the A's were going to come back and take the lead, and that was game 2 of the series. Or no, it was the second game where Holmes almost blew it, but he came back yesterday, pitched great. Tyone, slow start, good finish. Litke, great. Yankees got the 2 big boys to hit the home runs, and that was all they needed. So, hey, get the wins, get ready for the road trip, keep rolling.
Donald, what did you think?
I'm thinking big freaking G is what I freaking think. Yeah, we're unbeaten this year when Stanton and Judge both hit a home run. 100% record, and only lost one game that they both hit home runs, as you say, 23-1, absolutely fantastic. So just the elixir, the magic elixir is them both hitting a home run, and we're going to win. Listen, it was quite a tight series, actually. Oakland played us tough. We didn't blow them out of the water at home. We did a lot of early damage. And then kind of rely on the bullpen to close it out. Pitching wasn't amazing. It was okay. The offense wasn't amazing. It was okay. It's just they do enough. They've been doing enough. And, I like the use of Marwin Gonzalez. He's really added a spark this series. I think that's something that we could investigate further into him becoming a more regular platoon player. In fact, there's an article on NJ.com that is saying that he should be the right fielder instead of Joey Gallo. So, yeah, that's something maybe to investigate going into the next series with Houston and Pittsburgh, etc. So it was a positive series, man. Won every game. We weren't great but we did enough, and that's all we can ask.
This is the results that we expected were given to us. So sometimes little couple of bumps in the road, but as long as you make it to the destination of a victory, that sometimes that's suffice enough. But you brought up that the bullpen was mentioned, and like to put in my 2 cents of what you guys talked about yesterday with Chapman. It's really, I have a feeling that more times than not, Holmes is going to retain that 9th inning role. I think it's going to be one of those. They're going to put Chapman in situations, maybe the 7th or the 8th. Let him get his feet. This is what I would like to see. Not, I don't have Boone on the line to confirm with it, or talk him into anything. And I think you're going to see him in a 7th, 8th inning role in games that he can't damage the game. He can't ruin the momentum of the game if it's in our favor. And unless he's got to earn that spot back. Holmes earned that closing role. Chapman has to re-earn it. He has to re-earn the trust of the organization, the manager, his teammates, and the fans. Because I don't think any one of them in that group really trusts 100%, which in Chapman, what Holmes has been able to do for us.
Oh, good. The good news is I was wrong on the timeline. I thought he was coming back today because that's what all the signs are pointing to, but it might be later in the week. So we might have some time, an extra day or two until we see him back. But it makes sense not to bring him back against Houston. That's for damn sure. But yeah, we talked about it yesterday with Chapman. He can't be the guy you put out there in a big spot. He has to get that back. But I don't think his teammates don't trust him, because even on a night where he really struggled, it was Trevino and Rizzo, I think, that said, give the belt to Chapman, even though he had a bad inning, and this is what it tells you about the team. It doesn't matter, if you're struggling or not, they're going to have your back. So they may not say it, but I'm sure there's some do we go with him? But the teammates have each other's back. And we know Boone supports his players. It's been a little different this year, where he's not going to go hug them the second they have a bad game. But if anyone has to give the respect back to anybody, it's the fans, because nobody wants to see him back. I'm sure the team wants him back. They like him, but I don't think there's a single fan that's like, yeah, bring him back. I can't wait to see him back on the mounds.
Those are the fans that those wild pitches, like you said, the wild pitch that hits the fan, that's the one that wants him, on the mound.
Yeah, so they can get a little check.
Donald, what do you think is gonna? Am I far off on my breakdown of my expectations, or do you see something different playing out?
No, I think you've pretty much nailed it, man. It's like, put him in situations where he can't screw up the game. I mean, it's not what it doesn't really matter. This is still not what you're paying him for, man. The fact that we're trying to look for ways to use him where he's not going to blow the game is not a good way of. It's not ideal, man. How else can I put it in other words? It's not ideal at all. And you're thinking, how can we make use of a guy like Chapman, who used to be one of the best closers of all time? Now, I don't trust him in the 6th inning, let alone the 9th inning. It's not great. It's really not good at all. But there's no other scenario that can play out. Holmes is the closer. He should be the closer. Yeah. If you put Chapman in a game where we've got a 3-run lead, hey, maybe we've got a 1-run lead by the time Holmes comes in. How would you judge it with Chapman? Listen, I don't want to be overly harsh on Chapman, because he had a lot of good years. His best years were Chicago and pre-Chicago with us.
Yeah.
And obviously the Reds, he was terrific. He was one of the best closers of all time. And then his second stint with the Yankees, he was fine. It was just re-signing him again was the huge mistake.
Well, that's what it was. It was the second go around after him coming back from Chicago. The first go around, he was fine.
Oh, he was great.
Yeah,
he was a blast to watch, man. I never thought he was a pitcher. I always thought he was a thrower. But he was throwing 105, 106, and nobody could get anywhere near him. Do you know what I mean? But thing is, his fastball is so straight; it lacks so much. It doesn't really have much movement. His fourth seamer doesn't have any movement at all. That now that he's lost about 9-10 miles an hour on the top of his fastball, it's mostly now 95, 97, 98. Nowadays, everyone throws that.
yeah.
And nowadays, everyone throws that with movement. He doesn't have any movement. And so it's just, if he doesn't locate it very well, then it's gone. It's as simple as that. And that's what we found with Chapman. But I know the Yankees have a lot of faith in them, and they have exercised a lot of faith in him and exhausted a lot of faith in him. And we're going to have to see how it plays out. But Holmes should be the closer. I don't think there's any question about that. If they find a way of mixing him in to a 7-8 inning role, to at the lower end of the batting order, other teams' lower end of the batting order, then okay, we can maybe see how he does there, and then play it by ear from there.
Yeah, because that's what Boone was talking about. Not so much the inning that he pitches or Holmes pitches. It's, where they are in the lineup, where they are in the game. There's going to be a few variables into how he navigates his bullpen. And if Boone sticks to that plan, it can work. We were very skeptical of Boone when he had to start rotating, all the outfielders and infielders and who's going to shuffle where. He's been able to manage that all very well. Now we're putting rotating the bullpen on his plate. So I think this is going to be a little test for Boone to see if he can if he's still harnessing that managerial magic that he's shown us and being able to keep these guys all focused, locked in, ready at a given notice. So I think this bullpen now is going to be another big test for Boone on how we look at his season at the end.
That's a good point. I think he does have a good point though with the term closer kind of is
losing its value.
Yeah, because in theory you want your best pitcher going against their best hitter. So let's just say it's Houston, and they have Altuve, Bregman, and Alvarez coming up. You're not sending Chapman out there because he's probably giving up 3 runs. You'd want Clay Holmes to face that. So if that's in the 7th inning, you're going to put Holmes out there in the 7th and hope that King and Chapman can get the next 6 outs. But so, if it comes down to the 9th inning with those 3 guys, then Holmes is going to pitch. Holmes is getting the toughest part. King probably gets the next toughest 3. So Chapman could pitch the 7th. He could pitch the 6th. He could pitch the 9th. It's just you got to see when what matchups favor who. And Holmes has to face the toughest 3 in the order. So if that's top 3, middle, or some teams might have their bottom 3 be red hot, it doesn't matter. 3 toughest batters coming up goes to Holmes, and then King and I guess Chapman after that. But Boone's going to have his hands full, but he's done well so far. Can't complain about him. We'll see what he does here. He's got to use Chapman. They're not going to send him away, so he's going to use the guys he has. He hasn't lost faith in Miguel Castro, and he's not going to lose faith in Chapman either. He won't send him out every day in the 9th, but he'll find a way to use him. That's what Boone does.
Here's what I disagree with: the idea that from Boone, not your point, but what Boone is kind of saying here. Because, okay, so let's play out a scenario where 8th inning, Holmes comes in, faces the middle of Houston's lineup, right? Gets Bregman, Altuve out, blah, 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 no problem. 8 pitches. He gets through the inning. Bish, bash, bosh, no problemo, right? Going to the 9th inning. We're still protecting a 1-1 lead. You bring in Chapman, right? He walks 1 or 2 batters, and suddenly all hell breaks loose. Because that's tends to be what Chapman tends to do. So then all we're going to hear on social media and Yankee fans calling in, and then we'll be doing the same thing on our podcast. We'll be like, why did they take Holmes out? Why did they put Chapman in? It really doesn't matter who Chapman faces at any point in the order. He is not automatic. It does not matter. I mean, you've got a better chance of getting him the 8th or 9th inning guy out, but 8th or 9th guy out in an order. But he's already shown a proclivity to give up home runs to these guys. He's done it a number of times, so. That's why I think that they need to have just a set 9th inning guy in Holmes. You get to a 9th inning, at least you know you're gonna
you know what you're gonna get.
9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, he's closing that game with a minimum of fuss. It's just about managing how to get there. I mean, maybe it's an old school view. I like to have a set closer. I think if you know that you've got a 9th inning sorted, that 99 times out of 100 you're going to win every single time that pitcher comes in to close out that game, then that it shortens the game. You now know that it's only an 8-inning game, and that's a pretty good, it's a pretty good way to win ball games. And then, when with our bullpen, more with King pitching, and it's a 7-inning game, and then you can. Then when you think about the pitchers that we have with Cortez, Garrett Cole, Tyone, Severino, there's very little room for an opposition team to score runs on us, and that's why we're winning all these games. But I certainly wouldn't be giving them an extra opportunity with Chapman pitching. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, we're good. We're set to go on a 10 game road trip. And before we get into breaking down the teams and what we think how each series will play out, I did find some information. I remember some information about a former roommate of mine, Slow Joe Doyle. And to give you guys a little insight, the reason that he has his nickname Slow Joe was he would drive the analytical guys crazy nowadays because he was the slowest pitcher that was playing in that era. He took forever for his delivery. You could have Tyone could have a cup of coffee, make Boone a cup, and Boone finish his cup before he threw another pitch. He was very, very slow to work. So that's how he got his nickname, Slow Joe Doyle. And another bit of information, I know I'm not into it, but card collecting sometimes, is becoming a little bit of a big thing again. And we love, card collectors love imperfections. And in 1909, the American Tobacco Company, because that's how you used to get your cards back then,
he would know.
Mislabeled his playing card. And they had
worked for them, Tats. What was it like working for them?
They mislabeled his card, having him as a National League pitcher when he was in the American League. And so that's a very, very rare card, obviously. Nobody was saving Joe Doyle.
Damn it, Tats.
What?
Was that you, Tats?
Yeah.
Bobby Tats had 2 jobs back in 1909. He was working for the American Tobacco Company, misprinting baseball cards of his good friend and roommate, Slow Joe Doyle. And then he was also selling newspapers on the street. Get your papers here. Back, how they always had everybody had the same voice back in the 1900s. Doyle throws his shutout. Get your papers here. That was
Slow Bobby Tats.
Yep. So, all right. So the Yankees are getting set for a 10-game road trip, and the teams we're gonna have. I gotta pull it back up. This has just been one hell of a day. So we have the game with Houston tonight. It's 1 game. Then we have 3 against Cleveland, an off day. 2 against Pittsburgh, and then 4 against Boston. So I think this is going to be, even though it's 10 games, it's not that it's out of the ordinary to go on a 10-game road trip, but with the teams that we're facing, it's going to feel like a long road trip. And I think the game with Houston tonight, I think, is going to set the tone of what we're for the whole week. What do you guys think?
Yeah, first of all, Brian Hoke, I think it was Brian Hoke, made a really good point. The Astros were just in New York. The Yankees just in New York. Why the hell are they both flying to Houston for one game? I know it's a makeup for the CBA stuff, but it just makes no sense. But I hope they win tonight because I just want to beat Houston. And I'm not going to expect a sweep of Cleveland because they're playing really well right now, but it's another first. I think they're in first place now, but if they're not, they're like a half game out. Another good team that apparently we don't know how to beat. And Pittsburgh should be able to handle our business with them. And the real test is Boston because we haven't seen them since April. Another weird scheduling. We've played Tampa Bay a handful of times already. We've played tons of game against Blue Jays, the Orioles. We've already faced Chicago both series that we're going to see them this season.
We've answered your question. The Guardians are 2 games back. 2 games wins in first place. They're 38 and 34.
So they're playing better than they were when we saw them the first time. So, just go out and try to just keep winning series. That's all I ask. Do what we've been doing. I'm not going to say let's go 10-0. As much as I love it, but just win the series. If you have to split with Boston because they're on if it wasn't for us playing the way we were, they'd be just a few games back because they had a red hot month, just like we did. So, I think try to get 6-7 wins.
That's what I was going to say. I think 6-4 is a fair expectation. You should definitely win the 2 games against Pittsburgh. It might even be better than that because you're not gonna get swept.
Can you get better than 2-0 against Pittsburgh? We're only playing them twice.
Yeah.
No, listen. The Astros. I don't think the Astros game will set the tone for anything because there's only one game.
Okay.
It's just obviously it would be a huge confidence boost if we can look back and say we took 3 of the 5 against the Stros, then that would do a lot for the confidence. But listen, the Astros are the class of the American League East along with us. It's really between us two. You just saw what the Astros did to the Mets, dismantled them, and torched them. So listen, they're no mugs, man. To be honest, I think we could all agree that they were the better team in the 4 games against us. It took a couple of massive comebacks in order to pull out a tie of the series. Otherwise, the Astros ran away with it. So we go to their stadium. We always have trouble at their part. If we can pull out a W, that would be huge. But I wouldn't go as far as to say it sets the tone because there's 9 games after that. You got the Reds, you got the Guardians, you got the Pirates, you got a bunch of teams. Red Sox. I think the Red Sox is the most important series because the Red Sox are absolutely red hot. We don't want to let them start edging back into the race. So I would say that's the most important series, but it would be a confidence boost for sure over the one game. If you can pull it out, then that certainly will feel really good to say we took 3 out of 5 against the Astros.
Yeah. No, you're right because you want to be able to beat Houston as often as possible because if it comes down to it, well, more than likely, if we get there to the ALCS, we're going to see them because they just always get there. And we should be there this year with the way we're playing. Again, still early, but the way we're playing, we expect to get at least to the ALCS right now. But it's tough because normally I'd be like, yeah, we can run through Cleveland because we always played pretty well against them, but they're on a pretty good roll. And I know they want a little revenge because even though we swept them, they are still pissed at the Yankees. They're still very, very mad at what happened back in the Bronx, even though it was back in April. So they're probably looking for a little revenge. And we just saw that even though we swept Oakland, it wasn't easy. So we can't really take Pittsburgh lightly because who knows what happens there. We should run through Pittsburgh, but we should have ran through the Oakland A's, and it was kind of a tough fight to get those 3 wins. But that Boston series is the key because we haven't played them since the very first series of the season. So then everyone was just getting their feet wet in the year. Now these are 2 of the hottest teams in baseball about to go. It's going to feel like an old Yankees-Red Sox rivalry game because the fans are going to be ready. It's the first one in Fenway this year, and it's going to be fireworks, I think. So if they can go into that series with some good momentum, get some wins under their belt, that's really the one, even though it's the last series of this road trip. That's the one that sets the tone for this whole thing. I don't think it really matters what we do against Cleveland or Pittsburgh. Everything matters what we do against Boston.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. Splitting the Boston series to finish it off, I mean, it all depends on how the previous series go. If we really struggle against Cleveland, I want us to take it out on Boston and win 3 out of 4, and solidify, our dominance in the American League, because it's really the only other team that's showing any threat to us to this point, based on the teams that we've played, is Houston. So that's why I think tonight is even though it's one game, it's still a big game. You have to be able to go into Houston and say, look, you're not going to push us around. You got the best of us in the Bronx, but we are still the team to beat in the American League. They have to make that statement tonight.
I wouldn't even say that Houston got the better of us. I mean, let's be honest, they didn't freaking light up the scoreboard, our pitching
was there. He's the problem.
Altuve's always the problem. That's why we were talking about Aroldis Chapman earlier, and I dread the day that we have to use him against the Astros if we even think about it when Altuve's batting. But I really don't think that one game sets a tone for an entire road trip. If it was a start of a series, then yeah. If we were playing 3 in Houston, then obviously tonight would set a big tone because you got Houston and then Boston to finish it off. That's a very difficult road trip if you start with Houston and with Boston. But it's one game, not really. Kind of treat it like almost like a scrimmage almost. I know it counts, but it's so weird because it's sandwiched in between what should have been an off day, and we're going to play it's 22 games in 22 days. So if they come out flat, would not surprise me. And also if Houston came out flat, this could be a pitcher's duel. Sevy versus Garcia. It could be another low-scoring game because every game in that series in the Bronx was pretty low-scoring until, we put up the big 9th in the first game, and then the last game, we had that comeback. It was kind of low-scoring every single time. So they are the team to beat, because they're always there. And until we can prove otherwise, they are still the best team in the American League going back to last year. But I think we're good enough to beat them now. This was last year's Yankees. I'm like, we can't beat Houston. But now I'm like, we can go beat Houston. I don't think one game sets it. I'm still trying to find the words for it. Every series matters, yes. But if we even lost 2 out of 3 to Cleveland and split with Pittsburgh or even swept Pittsburgh, the Boston series is going to define a lot. Going into now it's July basically. That's a big, 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 big series. The Red Sox finishing off this road trip, that's huge.
So is it safe to say that the narrative should be just make sure that you solidify first place, keep the AL East in your pocket and adjust to everybody else as you go?
I guess so. I'm not saying you can lose every game until you face Boston, but I mean, I still want them to take at least 2 out of 3 against Cleveland. I still want them to sweep Pittsburgh, it's things that we should do. I just don't want people thinking we have to win 5 or 6 before we go take on Boston. We can, out of those first 6, we can go 3-3 and go play Boston. And just, it really matters what we do against them because, the first step is winning your division. You can't worry about what Cleveland's doing when you see them 6 times a year. You got to worry about the teams in your division. Right now, we got a huge lead, and it'll be up to us to make sure it stays that way going into the All-Star break.
Yeah, because Boston and Toronto they just had a slugfest of a series together. So I would have rather have played Boston now while they're a little worn out, But we're giving up they're getting a little time to recoup before facing the Yankees. So that could that's why that could very well be a split. It's just gonna be interesting. It can go in any direction. It just the way we've been watching this team this year, the direction that they've been facing it leads you to be more optimistic than pessimistic. So it's just the Yankees have to look at it. It's just any other road trip. Just go and handle your own business. Don't give up on games. Don't give games away. Whatever phrase you want to use, and handle your business. And remind just play the way you've been playing. Donald,
what's more to add?
All right, so that's going to wrap things up for us. Just remember, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Check out our social media. We will see you tomorrow, 9:30 to 10 o'clock. Wear your pinstripes with pride and play hard.